Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa plot to assassinate VP Chiwenga in a very sophisticated way that nobody will think it's an assassination, but people will say it's a natural death. It's not a new. VP Saulus Chiluma was assassinated for fighting against corruption. Muri Zimbabwe ndo nyaya hombe yatinayo muzuva ranhasi yatiri kuda kuti munhu wese wemunyika yeZimbabwe ange achinzwa nyaya yatiri kutaura nezvayo pano. Pano pari kubudiswa nyaya yekuti Idi akanga aronga kuasasinita VP Chiwenga zvozongonzi aiwa inguva yange yakwana, inguva yaMwari. Asi nekuda kwekuti Mwari vacho vakabva vadzivisa, vakabva vadzosa munhu, vakamuchengeta for a reason, because vakaona kuti vana venyika yeZimbabwe vachatambudzwa. Ukaona muchizotongwa kwemakore anokwana kana kuita 37 semakore akatongwa naRobert Gabriel Mugabe, muchitongwa nefamily yaEmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, munyika munogona kusara musina vanhu, munogona kufa mese kwakasara ivo chete nana Owen Mudhaniwe nevana Owen Mudhaniwe nevana Muliswa nevana vezvigananda nevana vese vari kusapota nezvigananda, because muri Zimbabwe munhu anotaura zvecorruption kuZanu-PF haatodiwe. Ndofunga makaona nyaya yedhosi last time yakapresentwa but yakashaya basa. Nyaya yaifanira kunge ichitaurwa. So muri Zimbabwe ndine nyaya hombe yandinayo panapa nda kuti mungonzwa muzotudzawo zvamunofunga.
Those people, the crowds, the ZANU-PF supporters, I am pretty sure their ambitions, whether they were hidden or not, especially for the case of Chris Mutsvangwa, there's an element I feel that then makes them a bit more jealous to say, but I have been with this party and I have done my bit. Probably I deserve to be addressing, or I deserve to be given the honor for what I have done for the party. But our people are going through economic hardships, and somebody who will come with a packet of millimil and a 5-liter bottle of cooking oil is bound to be more palatable because of these hardships that we are going through, rather than you just giving us slogans without promising anything in return for it. And so, because of the social contract having broken down, our votes, or rather the people, have sold their votes to the highest bidder. And it is this play of money that then gives people like Tungwarara and Tagwirei a false sense of power, or call it authority, although those are not synonymous things. That's not the same thing. They're two very different things. And we do find that the more people have gathered to these rallies or interface rallies that Tagwirei and Tungwarara seem to be conducting without any pullbacks, the more they have believed in themselves. What I find problematic is the way they go about showing opulence without any care of the world. Tungwarara, I've seen him on more occasions than not going to different places on a helicopter, probably more trips than His Excellency. I have seen Tagwirei driving in the most exotic cars, going through toll gates. Not that I'm suggesting they didn't pay for them, but these convoys, it's just throwing this opulence in the face and the sea of poverty that our people are going through. But it is also important that we take note that our people are not innocent in all this. They are complicit because of the reasons that I've already alluded to. They go to these rallies, they go in the hope that if you dance for 5 seconds, your life story can change by somebody just giving you $10,000 on the spot. But that model is not sustainable for the simple reason that the people who are struggling and who need that financial help are far too many to talk about. So as I land, I wouldn't see any issues with anybody pushing a narrative of them wanting to take over, but you also obviously knowing the terrain that you're working and operating in, you have to be subtle about it. This clickbait where you have vouchers that have now gone for one particular person can only, we have seen the script before. The mic was passed in 2017 from one person to the next, having a go at the now current president, and people had a go at him. And it's fair to say we know how that ended. But as long as we talk of a succession battle within ZANU PF, then we are more often than not guaranteed of having the same structure and the same system, regardless of who comes. As long as they come from ZANU PF, our destiny remains in the hands of people who have already shown us that they do not care as much to change the story, to change the narrative, to bring about a change to the common person from Mbare. Promises were made in 2017 that people would leave Borodale and come and live in Mbare when swimming pools would be resuscitated. But what do we have today? We have sewage that's overflowing. And no one has taken anyone to task to say, but on these promises that you gave us, what have you done about it? Last but not least, Uncle Jad, we had a 5-point measure card from the current president that he promised us kujekesa nyika. The country still to this very day is not self-sufficient in power generation. So as I land, I would say it's important to note that we had Mugabeism. I don't know if there is an ideology behind the current Second Republic. I don't know if they have restored the legacy. I don't know if they've spoken to the issue of the criminals around the president, the former president Mugabe. But it does seem to me, as an earlier speaker said, that we have more criminals, and I'm not accusing anyone. I might not have the V11s or the evidence of who is a criminal and who is not a criminal, but the opulence abounds in our land, and it can only lead to one conclusion that something dodgy is happening. There are brothers to a certain person in fear of defamation of character or a libel case coming my way. But it is according to public knowledge. Two brothers of a certain rich person from Zimbabwe were caught in South Africa with gold worth 15 million rand. Whatever happened to that case, I don't know. So when we talk of succession, I don't believe it's in our best interest for that person to come from within the same school of thought, to come from within the same ZANU PF mold to lead us. Where are they leading us to? One of them was a minister of health at a point where even paracetamol was not available in our hospitals. And yet we sit today, we discuss, look at that person who has already established and has already demonstrated that they struggle to get one or two things working. And we want to entrust the nation in their hands. That, I think, is where I will end. Cry, my beloved.
Right. Thank you very much, my brother. I do appreciate that contribution, that you have made. Yeah, thank you very much. You've asked, so many questions, in there, and you've raised so many, points that I think, speak to the conversation that we are having today. Um, Tungwarara, for me, is an individual that I did not know. Um, so I only came to know about him when he was appointed this investment advisor to the United Arab Emirates. So because of that, and also because of these state aligned projects that he took over, including the solar powered boreholes that he was drilling across the country. He said he was drilling about 35,000 of them. I don't know if those were finished. And then what he was doing with the war veterans, building houses with the war veterans, etc, etc. But a quick search of him in terms of the scandals, there's a case that was opened in 2019 where he is alleged to have borrowed 350,000 US dollars under the pretext of having state house construction tenders. Yeah, he repaid only $64,500, and then it's alleged that using his proximity to the first family, he avoided accountability in terms of paying, the rest of the monies. And the guy the businessman involved, his name is Joseph Chibisa. You can see there. They say he says that the fraud document that he had opened with CID, it just magically disappeared. And in attempts to raise the issue with Emerson Mnangagwa or State House, where it actually in Norway. So, the question then becomes, when you're looking at a person with that, I don't think that is much in terms of his background or in terms of his history. I know that he's coming in, um, and is sitting at the intersection of him, passing himself on as a businessman. So it means he's there in the business, and by landing this position of being the economic advisor covering this area, the United Arab Emirates. I don't know whether it was because he comes from there or he spent most of his time there. I'm not sure. And then now there is a bit of this presidential thingy, protection that he's having, or this the first family protection that he's having, and now he's now into politics. I know Tezoranga Dandizo, you was just overzealous, you was just excitable. But you wonder, Kuti, when Emerson Mnangagwa is having such an individual and is running around um doing whatever it is, that he's doing, what is the actual benefit, to him? What does he get? Why is he associating himself, with this figure whose actions, right now are being analyzed and reported as being, divisive and asirugida uda.
Uncle,
Why?
I'll quickly respond to that.
Mm,
Sometimes in politics, you just have to throw the cat among the pigeons, and
right.
you look away. And what happens is none of your business, because what you want to do is you want to create as much havoc as you can so that the next person cannot second guess what's your next plan of action. So he is very useful um, to the appointing principal. He serves a purpose, and that purpose might not necessarily be known to you and me, but it is known to he who has sent him. Why? Because his someone's dirty work needs to be carried out. His like. So we need, everybody needs a runner, and that runner needs to. It's obvious they're taking their instructions from the powers that be. So you don't necessarily need to have order. You need to create some confusion, all to your benefit, because at the end of the day, Tungwarara is also benefiting because he has got certain contracts that he is now executing, and there's no way, if we take a very simplistic view, Uncle, there's no
Mm,
way you can carry $50,000 and give a community in Manicaland and you remain with nothing in your pocket. So let that be our
mm,
starting premise, that it is not only financially beneficial to him, but it does seem now that he feels a certain level of importance. Now, it's also psychologically proven that when you give somebody a microphone, half
mhm.
the things that they say, they definitely did not plan to say them. When you are engaging your brain whilst you're on that stage and people are shouting and screaming, uh,
Right.
you have no time to process it, Uncle. So it comes out, and it is only after you've said it that you realize, what the hell did I say? And it has already created that storm now. It's how you then deal with the backlash of what you have said. Probably say it in the heat of the moment. We all say things that we probably end up regretting, simply because of what situation we find ourselves in. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, because I mean, I mean, you might be right, there, and because one, if you look at him, the only thing that is bringing into the mix, especially on the issues that we are speaking to here, is I think it's bringing in loyalty, that I'm loyal.
Yeah,
Because one, he doesn't have any war credentials. He's not a liberation, war figure. He's not a military man.
no,
He does not have an independent political base that you might say, oh, it's probably because he has or is coming from this political base, so maybe, but he's not bringing any of those.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
you
And
see,
So now, do you
and the
agree that he
power that
was
he has
very?
is coming
So now, do you
directly
agree
from
that
Emerson
when I said he
Mnangagwa.
was very excitable,
There's some
you agree
entitlement
now?
in the guy. When he speaks, there's definitely you can tell Pani Pagatsika, Anika entitlement. So cannot order for his, for when you're talking about ZANU PF, Mons Gobaton and I speaking about, and we know these people, we know most of the ZANU PF Kwavaga Va, running one a history and stuff.
Mm.
But for such a guy of his age, and his family and the power that he's exuding, you can tell Kuti ka entitlement kacho kane backing. Aningane backing or for
No, he was just
somewhere where
excitable
it's coming
moment.
from.
Sometimes when I don't get excitable, won't go to some room.
It's not once padara or it acceptable.
Yeah.
One more than once, so you can tell
So
the
chakwe kunyeba.